What is going on, everybody? This is Jackson from JD Sports Zone, and today I have another special Banana Ball interview with Indianapolis Clowns pitcher David Griffin. David, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to do this. How's tour going? And thank you once again.
Hey, thanks for having me, Jackson. And it's been good. It's definitely been a new experience for sure. It's been a blast. Obviously, with the travel and stuff like that, it can kind of wear you down a little bit, but just had a nice little reset here in Savannah for the weekend. So I'm excited to get back on tour and get back out on the road.
Yeah, I'm excited you're having an amazing tour, and what a great tour statistically for you. But before I get into Banana Land side of things, I want to start off with your pro ball career and everything
Mhm.
before that. So you played a little bit at Curry College, and you were a longtime member in the Mets organization. You were
Mhm.
drafted in the second round of the recent Banana Ball draft, the only Banana Ball draft that's happened so far. So for those who don't know, kind of explain your story on how you took the journey from pro ball to Banana Land and what this means to you in this point of your career.
Yeah, so essentially, I ended up going to college to a small Division III school called Curry College, just outside of Boston. And then after I got graduated in 2018, I went undrafted and actually worked sales doing a 9 to 5 job in the city of Boston. And the 9 to 5 was not for me. I struggled at first because it was really the first time I really didn't have baseball in my life, where it was one of those where I was trying to figure out who I was as a person outside of the sport. And the biggest thing for an athlete when they get done playing is trying to figure out your identity outside of the sport at times. And I struggled with that immensely. And I want to say it was February of 2019. Terrible time to do this, but I proceeded to quit my job doing sales, my 9 to 5 job. I quit that after a 5 night, 4 day trip to Vegas with all my buddies. I took a leap of faith on that one. It was for me, it was like I never really worked out in college or lifted weights, and I started get into weightlifting. And people from the baseball world I'd run into, they'd be like, "Oh, we thought you were gonna get drafted. We're surprised that you didn't." And I never really worked out in college, so the question had always haunted me of like, if I actually lifted weights and tried to get into the gym and stuff like that, like what could have happened? And the regret was kind of eating at me a little bit. So I started going to the gym and stuff like that. And it kind of really hit me in Vegas when just naturally I was just waking up at 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. All my friends would still be asleep. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go work out, just go for a workout and stuff like that. And to me, it was a big eye opening deal where if I could still discipline myself on a trip to Las Vegas, Nevada with all my best friends for a 5 night trip, I'm pretty sure I can handle the baseball grind and trying to go professionally and stuff like that. So yeah, I ended up doing an independent ball camp down in Florida, and I was one of the few guys to get signed out of there. So I ended up signing with the Lake Erie Crushers of the Frontier League. Was in spring training, did well. I mean, my velo jumped up from the low eights to the topping out at 90 when I was in college to 90, 91, 92, even hitting 93. And even there in Lake Erie in spring training, I mean, I didn't have the best stuff. I was definitely a little bit rusty. But I was one of the harder throwing guys, but I just had no command of my secondary pitches. And because I was such a late signee, they just released me I didn't make the roster, the opening day roster. So I had two options, either to go back to Boston and go back to the work world, or really try to figure out this whole independent baseball route and kind of network a little bit. And through my connections from the Futures Collegiate League in Massachusetts, they were able to get me in touch for a workout with the Chicago Dogs. And from there, through a bullpen and everything like that. And there happened to be a consultant for the Gary Railcats who saw me throw, and they said, "Hey, if it doesn't work out, we want to see you down in Gary throw a bullpen." And a few days later, I ended up throwing a bullpen down in Gary, and they were really interested in me and stuff like that. And from there, it was one of those, I hadn't heard anything for 2 weeks. So I'm like, okay, what's going on here? Like, I'm living out in Indiana with relatives, which they helped out so much in that because I was on like, not only for that, too, just for, like, it's mental health month as well. It was one of those where I was going through so much at a time, like trying to figure out who I was as identity, going through just the next steps in life. And just being away and isolated from everything was super helpful. And then I was getting ready to leave, or I called my dad and said, "Hey, I think it's time I'm gonna start driving back to Boston, stuff like that." And he's like, "All right, I'm gonna fly out on Memorial Day. We'll do the drive, all that stuff." He proceeds to fly in, and we're about to leave the next morning. So we're like, you know what, we're gonna go golfing. So we go golfing, and I see a missed phone call, and I play the voicemail, from an unknown number, and it was the pitching coach for the Gary Railcats. And they said, give me a call back when you get a chance. So I call back, nothing. So then I go hit another shot. See, they call me again. So I'm like, I am not leaving this golf cart or hitting another shot until this phone rings. Call me back. And they say, hey, David, how's it going? Good. They said, hey, question for you. Like, where are you right now? And I said, I'm in Lafayette, Indiana. I'm only probably hour and a half. I would say, yeah, an hour and a half drive from Lafayette to Gary, which through the time zone, it's only 30 minutes, but time zone back, it's 2.5 hours. And they said, oh, okay. They said, do you have a passport on you? I'm like, yeah, I got my passport on me. And then they said, well, don't be upset if we ask you this, but is your criminal record clean? And I said, yeah, I'm clean as a whistle. Like, what's going on? And they said, well, we have a bus leaving at midnight to go to Winnipeg, Canada, and we need another arm. Like, can you make it? I never left the golf course so quickly in my life. In actually joy, not rage, not upset from how I shot. But no, it's definitely one of those where it was really cool. Hopped on the bus 16 hours, first time pro ball experience ever doing something like that. Activate second day, go 1, 2, 3 for 2 innings. And then just like learning, like I had to learn really quickly how to take care of my body in pro ball. And I strained my forearm flexor, had to get a PRP injection. I missed about 6 weeks. Came back, started to struggle a little bit, got released, but the paperwork was never filed. So my manager was trying to figure out, well, one, I was straight out of college. I was a Division III kid, so I really didn't understand how to be a pro. And then from there, he's like, I see a lot of potential. Like, I want to figure this out. Kind of bear with me. And I was in my feelings a little bit. I kind of was like mentally don't know where to go from here. Like, I had no guidance, no direction or anything like that. And I was about to go home, like drive back to Boston. And then I got a phone call from the consultant who originally found me and kind of gave me a nice little pep talk and light a fire underneath me. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to go do this. I go back as a starter. My only two starts of that season, 2019. Second batter I faced allowed a solo home run. And that's the only run that I allowed. So for two starts, I went 4 innings, 1 run, 1 walk, like 2 hits. Then, or actually, no, 1 hit because it was a home run. And then the next start a week later is against the same team. I take a no hitter to the sixth. Take a no hitter to the sixth. One of those, got out of it, no walks, whatever. And I'm like feeling good going into the 2020 season. I have a free agent workout with the Brewers. COVID hits. So they really don't sign guys. The world's on pause. So I'm trying to figure out where to go from there. Back home at a facility, one of my buddies said, hey, I'm going to go up to New Hampshire and work out with this guy I used to work with at Bridgeton Academy, who happens to be a pitching coach in the Brewers organization. So I was like, oh my God, like that's awesome. I go, do you care if I tag along? He goes, no, come with. So me and my buddy Sam, we carpool up and I meet Carson Cross, who's now owns this facility at 603 Evo or East Coast Evo, actually, because they expanded. And Carson and I, we start talking and I said, hey, I actually went to a Brewers free agent workout. He goes, oh, in Arizona? I said, yeah. He goes, which bullpen were you on? I said, I was on the far left lane with the fence hugging to my left. He goes, I worked the data for that bullpen. So he was the pitching coach. So it was funny. Like we got to know each other right away and he kind of like had the data and knew what has potential for me and what doesn't. And after we got done, he said, hey, I'm opening a facility in the fall. I would love to have you train here. We can definitely, there's a chance we can get you signed. I was like, perfect. I'm all in. So I'm driving an hour and a half every 2 or 3 days to go work out, throw, do what I have to do, learn the analytics of baseball, the way this game was trending. And that right there really helped me out because I was a very old school, just, hey, see ball, hit ball, do this. And I never understood the depths of the analytics within the sport and how that could help with training. And that doesn't mean I'm very like, oh, analytics are the way. I think there's a fine line between both. So that offseason goes really good. A month into the Gary season in the American Association, I'm getting ready to go on a bus to Kansas City, and they tell me, hey, we're keeping you back because one, it's a 3-game series. You just threw the previous game. And on top of that, we got to get you ready for your Saturday start, but it's not going to be for us. So I'm like, what do you mean? What's going on? And my manager starts telling me the story of how, like, since then, I've matured and all that stuff, learning how to be a pro. He goes, with that being said, the New York Mets just got off the phone and bought your contract. So I'm like, whoa. And this is 11:50 at night. Um, so I'm like just in awe, like it's just hitting me on like a random Monday night. And back home, it's like almost 1 a.m. So like once I get everything kind of settled away, like everyone's cheering, everyone's excited. I got to call my family. They're like the first phone call. And of course, my parents are sleeping, so they don't pick up. I call my aunt. She doesn't pick up, but then my mom calls me right back and was like, "Hey, is everything okay?" Motherly instinct when I call at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Monday. And I said, "Hey, like, where's dad?" And she goes, "Sleeping." I go, "Wake him up." And she's like, "Is everything okay?" I said, "Wake him up now." So she wakes him up and they said, "What's going on?" You're on speakerphone. And I said, "Hey, I just want to let you guys know I'm coming back home to the East Coast. I'm going to be in Delaware." They're like, "Oh, cool. Like, what for?" I said, "The New York Mets just bought my contract and I'm pitching this Saturday in high A." And they're like, "Oh my God, that's awesome. That's awesome." Like, my mom's first instinct still being half asleep. "You're not driving there tonight, are you?" I said, "No, mom." I said, "I gotta pack out my locker here. And I then have to drive to my host family where I live out in Gary, pack up that stuff and then drive out." I was like, "I'm not going to do that till the morning." She's like, "Well, okay, like be safe. Like just call me in the morning." I'm like, "All right, sounds good. Love you guys, all that stuff." And then I tell my friends, I send a text. I send the text to like my college friends and my high school friends, and then everyone's awake, which is somehow crazy. So they're all excited. My parents call me back 30 minutes later. It just hits them. "Oh my goodness, you got signed!" Like what? Oh, so that was a really cool moment. Um, yeah, and then I was in the Mets system for that 4 years there. Made it to AAA for parts of 2 seasons. I got called up in 2022 for a little bit for like filling in for 2 weeks. And for theirs, that's where I really I learned the business side of the sport. Like when I first got signed, everyone thinks like, "Oh, you have a chance to be a prospect, make it to the big leagues and stuff like that." However, it was one of those where obviously I'm getting frustrated, but now realizing how much money is being put in and stuff like that, it's just you're gonna have less opportunities than others, and you just got to make sure you're ready for when those moments come. And essentially, it's like you have to learn how to be your own coach. When people say, "Oh, you got to be professional," it's you got to learn how to coach yourself and understand what information is being uh, thrown at you to then learn how to process it, digest it, and then go do it. Um, and then from there, it ended up being I was kind of filling in between starting and relieving. Like once I got to Double A, I was on the development list for a little bit because they liked me because I could throw in bulk and I could handle high workloads without getting hurt. Knock on wood, I was never on the injured list of my affiliate career, which is super helpful. Especially in today's game, it's all about durability and versatility too as an arm, being able to start or come out of the bullpen. Um, and then yeah, 2023, they actually told me to have my phone on standby in September because they might put somebody in the IL and you're the first one up to go. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. So they proceeded to just stay in AAA for the end of the season and then get ready for 2024. And unfortunately, on Mother's Day, I got released and I kind of didn't know what I was going to do. It was that whole 2023, 2024 season. I was definitely super anxious about like what's going to happen if I get released because I know I'm going to get released, but I just don't know when. So it felt like I was walking on eggshells and I was so scared of what the next chapter would be, especially after seeing how I handled myself when I graduated college when I wasn't in pro ball. So that was definitely scary. But then once I got released, it kind of felt like it was a breath of fresh air, as in like I didn't feel like my hands were tied in terms of baseball stuff, of like what I wanted to do, what I wanted to work on, stuff like that. But it was just the next battle was trying to get your foot back in the door. And I didn't really have the stats to back it up because I was filling in so much. And it was like, hey, like your ERA might be high, but you also threw a decent amount of innings though. So it's kind of like, okay, are we looking at him as a good person to fill in, or are we looking at this person to be like a steeple? And that was half the battle. And I learned new analytics, new pitches, and stuff like that, and was just trying to work on whatever trend was the new thing between whether it was a sweeper, whether it was a cutter, adding a splitter, vice versa. And took the summer off of 2024, started coaching some high school kids, and then I ended up going to the Atlantic League playing for the Long Island Ducks. Finished the year good there, and then 2025 rolls around, go back to Long Island, did a few pro days, didn't get signed. There was talks about getting signed by another team. There was talks about going internationally, never really panned out. So the season ends. I lost the ERA title in my last batter. Home run is what it is. And then ended up I'm getting ready to go play winter ball somewhere, whether it's the DR or Puerto Rico or Venezuela, and I get a DM from Barry, the person in charge of scouting for the Banana Ball League, and he reached out to me. And at first, I thought it was a joke because I was like, to be honest, before this year, I had never watched a Banana Ball game. I never knew what it was about, and I thought for me, I thought it was very. I didn't say it was a mockery, but like I didn't feel like it was real baseball because I never watched the game. But as I've gotten older and my perspective has shifted from, okay, what can this game do for me? As in, like, oh, I'm trying to climb to the top, I'm trying to do this. Now it turned into how can I give back to the next generation? How can I give back to the game? Once that mind shift of or the perspective shifted, it made Banana Ball so much fun. Like I was one of those where there was no pressure to perform. You just go out there, be a good person, just be who you are. And if you're a good person like that and make friends and you're able to be someone that fans can relate to and easy to talk to, you're gonna have a good day at the ballpark regardless. And I went to a tryout for the first time. I had to learn all this stuff like the hey baby dances, and I had to get out of my shell in terms of being on camera and dancing and stuff like that. And I remember when I went to the Nashville workout, Gillum gave me a great piece of advice because he asked me, he said, "What do I think so far?" Because he said obviously you can compete, you've had the resume being in AAA and stuff like that, but what do you think is your biggest hurdle to get over or biggest challenge? I said to be honest, it's learning the dances and just being on camera, like in terms of doing like dancing and like kind of silly things. And he said the good part with that is when you're in an environment that long, when you're in an environment when everybody's doing it, it pushes you to come out of your shell and it pushes you to be able to work on your craft more and just it becomes easier to like just do it. Because when you're first going on the camera by yourself, like whatever, everyone's kind of like, oh, who's this person? Like, what's going on? Where if everyone's doing it, you're like, oh, they're just filming, whatever. And since coming down to Savannah, that's definitely been like my first, like, I definitely felt more comfortable as the weeks that go by and stuff like that. And now it's second nature, just being on a camera, talking, doing some dances, even though I might look silly doing it because I have no rhythm. But it's a good way to practice. Like I've definitely learned more about so much different things, and especially being someone who's hearing impaired like myself, it's hard to hear beats. So I've had to like try even harder, which is why I was always a little self-conscious with dancing. And I think that's kind of why I was very shy about it. But no, it's been a blast so far, and that's kind of what led me to here.
Well, I love hearing the stories when it comes from the professional side of things. And so many fans don't realize how big of a mental grind it is for baseball players, especially on the pro ball route. Because a lot of fans have the ideal of once you're in pro ball, you're set, you're happy and everything. And I love hearing the story from you going from Gary, getting the phone calls, the late night drives to signing with the Mets and now being in an entertainment side of baseball, because you have an illustrious minor league career, pro ball career, and now an illustrious banana ball career. So, David, I truly appreciate you sharing that story, and hopefully, a lot of fans get a bigger idea of what it's like to be, a professional baseball player. And I think that you have like such an amazing story, especially leading to this point. So I do actually want to ask you some
Hmm.
fun questions relating to this
All
side
right,
of the
let's bring
game.
it.
Now, this question, I'm gonna start on a lighter note before I get to this next question, because right out the gate, you got pitcher of the month. How was
Hmm.
that actually like to you?
It definitely was nice. It's definitely one of those I'm trying to get back there. I definitely came out of the gates hot, and it's one of those where guys really didn't know what to expect when facing me and stuff like that. But now, especially with Banana Ball, you play the same teams and the same hitters so often that people develop tendencies and things like that. And it's a blessing to get that right off the gate, but it puts a target on your back. And it was one of those things where I also got lucky too, where I was pitching the first game of every series, where later in the season I probably pitched like the second day and stuff like that, where dad really had to you really had to mentally lock in because you're going to be on your feet all day from the night before. You're going to have the adrenaline from the games because it just the atmosphere is so stimulating and your adrenaline's through the roof. It's really hard to get yourself to kind of come back down. And I think that's where I started to kind of fall behind in counts. So it's not executing as much, everything like that. And no, I mean, I'm starting to feel like I'm hitting my stride again. I mean, I'm going deeper into games now, which has been good and giving us a chance to win. And we're definitely playing better all around banana ball, which is good. You've seen guys ripping more trick plays and stuff like that. And my job is just to get us in the sixth inning realistically with a chance to win and within the 1 hour mark. And that's all I try to do. If we end up walking off on an inning, it is what it is. But now it's like you just got to flush it out and go right back into it.
I mean, statistically, I see you as one of the best pitchers in all of banana ball. I had the privilege of coming out there for game 2 and seeing
Hmm.
you pitch. You pitch fantastic. And I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad you bring up this part of having a target on your back, knowing that you're one of the best pitchers in banana ball. I have some fans sent in questions, and this one is from a guy you know very well. Who's the toughest batter you faced, and why is it Lamar Sparks by Eli Payton?
Ah, okay. Eli. All right. So the thing with Lamar's a person who does a very good job at hitting mistakes. And he's one of those where if you give him a chance and he sees a mistake, he's going to capitalize it. It's not too often that Lamar misses a mistake. And if he does, you just got to roll with it. You can't reflect on it. It's a free pass if he lets a mistake go by. And it's just he's one of those guys, along with like Kyle Martin, stuff like that, where you can't miss your spots. Like you got to be specific with it, or you got to use their aggression to your advantage and stuff like that. So definitely Lamar and Kyle Martin are definitely two top outs or toughest battles to get out. And it's funny with facing the Tailgaters this weekend, I have yet to get a strikeout against them in my 10 innings I pitch against the Tailgaters. So I mean, there's definitely good hitters in the league, and it's definitely one of those where if you don't let the game speed up on you, you're going to have success. But if the game starts to speed up a little bit on you, you're going to see people capitalize on mistakes, especially for the hitters between Lamar, Joe Gray, Nico, Kyle Martin, and a handful of other guys.
No, I think that's a very well put way to say it. Yeah, Eli wanted me to ask that question, sent that one in.
I know Eli did, and I know exactly the reason why. So,
Now, I do actually have some more fan sent in
mhm,
questions. So, again, you talk about facing guys like Kyle Martin, you talk about
mhm,
facing guys like Lamar Sparks, capitalizing on those pitches. But now that you're in banana ball, you kind of have to mix in the trick pitches. And
yeah,
this next one is from Beautiful Soul 9LP.
mhm.
Favorite pitch to throw during a trick play?
Ooh, like I don't get to, I tried one trick pitch this year so far, and it was a great changeup in Tacoma, Washington. That I don't know how Tanner Thomas got to. He threw his hands at the barrel and fouled it off, and I looked at him. I said, "That was the first time I tried a trick pitch all year," and he did a great job fouling off. Which it shows you why, like even though they say we're dancing baseball players, like these are still like good hitters. And like Tanner's another guy where if you make a mistake, like more often times than not, he's going to take advantage, which is why the Party Animals were the champions last year. Um, but I mean, I do love throwing like a ground ball double play or a ground ball trick play. But don't get me wrong, my favorite trick play I've had so far this year is Jackie with the pop fly to JBJ hitting the Naruto catch. I love that. That's just he did it. He even spoke into existence the first inning of the game of the season because he said, "Hey, I'm going to do this thing with 2 outs." I said, "Jackie, you realize if you do this catch with 2 outs, we're going to run around the field and go crazy." And sure enough, 2 outs, pop fly to center field. He's going for it and he pulls it off, and we just right then and there, our adrenaline was so high and our momentum, it was so hard to get us to just like, hey, throw us off our game.
And you talk about manifesting things like Jackie Bradley Jr. did with that play. We're going to manifest it on the podcast. You're going to throw really well versus the Texas Tailgaters, hoping for a lot of strikeouts relating to that. And, trick pitches. Have you ever thought about doing I don't know if you can do this, but a handstand pitch?
Uh, I can do a handstand. I did a little bit of gymnastics growing up, but throwing from a handstand has been pretty tough for me. I can do kind of like the like push off the hands, get it and throw, or like a cartwheel or something like that. But I'm also a person I like I try to work very fast, so it's really hard. Like I can do something like maybe like between the legs or around the back, but when it comes to the handstand, it's so tough. And plus, you put yourself in such a scared position as a pitcher, which like I saw Ben Dunn do it one time on clips. Same thing with Jared Donaldson. He did like a get up and throw pitch, but it was definitely one of those where like that takes a lot of guts and courage for those guys. So like I just give them tip the caps for the guys that do that.
Yeah, personally, I'm unathletic. This is why I'm on a podcast with you and not out there on the field. So, hey, we maybe we'll see it from David Griffin later on this season. But you talked about big inspirations early on in your minor league and pro ball career. And this next question comes from Shannon L. Roden. Biggest
Mhm.
inspirations on and off the field for you this season?
Uh, Probably the biggest inspirations on and off this season is one thing I've definitely noticed within this year compared to my other years in pro ball is how much of a impact banana ball has on people, just the types of people and everything like that, people going through some stuff. Like there was a time in Tulsa where there was a little girl who she got diagnosed with a disease, and her dad's deployed overseas and everything like that. And her part of a soldier's wish was she wanted to go see a banana ball game live. So Fans First Entertainment flew her family out to Tulsa, Oklahoma to watch us play the tailgaters. And we all saw her, hung out with her, and made sure like she felt welcomed and everything like that. And the tailgaters had a signed jersey for her. And I noticed that the clowns, we didn't have anything. And we can always do signed baseballs, but I want to make it special. So I actually grabbed her a pair of my cleats that I had from earlier in the season. And I only wore them for the first game, but they were still pretty clean. So I cleaned them up, made sure everyone signed them to give to her. And realizing it, looking back at it now, I was telling Bob Kendrick this in Indiana or Indianapolis that the cleats that the cleats that I wore for that first game was the ones I threw the first pitch in Clown's history in. That so she has the history at her place. So like that definitely holds a little bit deeper meaning, especially knowing what the clowns represent and everything like that. But I would say is that the inspiration. I mean, for me now at this point too, like when you're going from living on eggshells, paycheck to paycheck, trying to make it by in the minor leagues to the opportunities here in banana ball. I mean, I definitely like my parents have definitely been a huge inspiration myself. Like I want to return the favor because I've known how much they've invested in their lives just to see me succeed, not only in baseball but in life. Whether it's just like to give me a regular life, especially going through all my ear appointments and stuff like that, to make sure I had a normal upbringing and everything like that. So I would say in terms of off the field, definitely my parents have definitely been a huge part to that, as well as just the people that I've met along the way for Banana Ball. Just seeing the impact that has on the kids, like even adults as well. So I think that's been a really cool moment.
I think that's absolutely amazing, giving those cleats to that little girl. And again, I had the opportunity to see so many amazing moments when it comes to fan interactions. Like something that Pro Ball doesn't give the experience is you guys going into the stands, interacting with the fans during the game. Because again, you see in smaller stadiums that you guys tour to, you never know if that's their only game they're ever going to get to go to. And David Griffin, I think he fit Banana Ball and the Indianapolis Clowns perfectly. So again, I truly appreciate, your story and everything you've done in the community when it comes to impacting the fans that way. But I do want to ask you some fun related questions now out of my own. And I saw that
All
you're a
right.
big Star Wars guy. Personally, I think Count Dooku is the most underrated Star. That's absolutely awesome. There's no way. But I think Count Dooku is the most underrated Star Wars character of all time. You're a pitcher, you're in the starting rotation. If you could choose five guys of Star Wars characters to create a starting rotation around, who are you choosing?
Ooh. All right, that's a good one. I've actually been re binge watching Star Wars. I need to see the new Mandalorian. I haven't watched it yet. I was gonna, because here's the tough part too, is that when you watch all the new Star Wars like TV series, like especially with like the whole Maul series, Maul is so like you see the difference in like the character arcs and stuff like that. I feel like you have to go with Ahsoka Tano because she was the apprentice of Anakin Skywalker. Unfortunately, becomes Darth Vader. Um, so Ahsoka Tano, you got to go Luke Skywalker. You just have to. He's probably one of the most powerful Jedi's. Um, this is where this is where I can go in my bag for this one. I could say Cal Kestis, Yoda, and then it's a toss up between Vader or Maul, to be honest. Like I feel like the Emperor is just like that's just a given, but I want to go outside the box on that one.
I think that's a great core five. Personally, I'm a big Star Wars fan. I think Star Wars Emperor Strikes. I mean, I know it's a popular answer, but the Emperor Strikes Back is personally my favorite. And I think it's the
Hmm.
best one story arc wise. And I have a lot of friends who are big like Rogue One fans, and personally, I have a
Yeah.
little off-putting feelings about the newer Star Wars. But I think that's a great answer relating to that. Now, I want to kind of, revert back to when you were talking about the cleat story, and I
Hmm.
recently saw a reel with you in it. Again, Bob Kendrick.
Hmm.
You gave those cleats to the Negro League Baseball Hall of Fame. What was that significant moment personally mean to you?
Honestly, it meant a lot. I mean, definitely being a white person on a Negro League team is definitely a little different. I never had to deal with some of the adversity that a lot of those ball players had to deal with throughout those times. But at the same time, we all agree that baseball is America's pastime and stuff like that, and the sport itself has such an impact not only in our lives, but people don't realize that baseball, especially in the Negro Leagues, was the start of the civil rights movement with Jackie Robinson breaking the color barriers and stuff like that, and as well as the influence that the Negro Leagues had with the barnstorming tours internationally to Latin America, to Japan. They actually went to Japan 7 years before the MLB All Stars did. To think about that, so that was Japanese baseball's first exposure to American baseball with the flair, the pizzazz, the strength, the power, all that, and it took people by surprise over there. And realistically, you could you could you could go down the road, you can go down the rabbit hole and say if it wasn't for the Negro League barnstorming tour in Japan, we would never have Shohei Ohtani in the major leagues.
Mhm.
And you see a lot of the Latin players play with such flair, such passion, the strength, the velocity, the power, all that stuff, and that stemmed from the barnstorming tours and the internationally from the Negro Leagues and stuff like that too. And just the influence that it's had in everything that even now in baseball today, there are roots that are tracing back to the Negro Leagues. I mean, they had the first night game before MLB ever did. They were so popular that they were, as Bob said, churches were moving service up 1 hour so families could attend the baseball games after. So being able to donate cleats to that is just it's you're you're tipping your cap to the rightful. You're giving flowers to those who pretty much paved the road for us that never got the recognition they deserved.
Yeah.
And I think that's the bit that's what means so much to be able to do that, and especially now with Banana Ball, where we have free creative expression to do whatever we want to. That's why I think that was really cool to have those cleats in for Kansas City and Indianapolis. So it meant something, especially to have Bob Kendrick there, so I could hand it to him personally because he loved it too. He said these are really cool. I mean, guys have done Jackie Robinson cleats and stuff like that, but no one's done a full tribute to the Negro Leagues on their shoes. So I thought it was a really cool thing to do, and the artist, it's a 17-year-old kid, did a fantastic job.
I think that's absolutely awesome. It's truly culturally significant. And being there at the Banana Ball game, seeing what the Clowns did before the game, telling the story to all the fans that may not know the history behind the Indianapolis Clowns is really eye-opening. And I think that's an absolute awesome moment that you got to do with those cleats and, the story. And I think that's absolutely awesome. Now, I know we only have 5 minutes left in this Zoom meeting before
Mm-hmm.
it runs out. So I have two more questions. Actually, I'm going to ask you the last question very quick.
All
I
right.
asked this to every single Banana Ball guy. And again, you talk about fans first. What does the term fans first personally mean to you being a Banana Ball player?
To me, it's making the person you're making memories with them, and essentially, it's one of those where they like every little kid at that point, like when you go to a game like that, they're always asking for autographs because like even when you're in the major leagues and stuff like that, kids want to feel like they're picked within a crowd, and people want to feel included. They want to feel selected, special, and stuff like that. And I think fans first essentially is what we do. It's we go out of the way to make sure every single person has a specific core moment or memory that they have there so that they'll remember for the rest of their life.
And again, I think that's absolutely awesome. Seeing it from the game perspective, the Banana Ball backstage experience, to the parties in the plaza, to the players going throughout the stands, even, before really rope drops and them being out there as well. And again, David, your story and everything you stand for is perfect for Banana Ball. And I think you're doing an amazing job. And I look forward to seeing what you do for the rest of the clown season. And David, thank you again so much for taking time out of your day and especially mid-tour to do this interview.
Hey, appreciate you for having me on.
Yeah.